Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode, an all new episode of the story of right here on Bowie Films Season 5, Cinco. Uh, that's the only language I other know. Before we get started, subscribe for me right now. Hit subscribe, take 2 seconds. Subscribe up there, down there, wherever, maybe subscribe for me. Of course, I'm your co-host, the Manny Lagunes. If you didn't know, just take a look at this hairline, pristine hairline. That's gonna let you guys know I am the OG Manny. Of course, I am joined here with my guest, as always. His microphone is muted. Jay Davis. JD, I call him JD because that's my boy. Y'all can't call him that. Jay, how are you, man?
What's good, Michael Manny? It's a good day. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. He didn't introduce me, but I'll jump right in there and just say I'm glad that you put up the number 5. It's almost like how many inches tall that you are. That's great. And so here we are, Season 5, Episode 4, the climax. We're about to jump right into it. JD, we learned a lot about your life and everything that you've gone through, but the thing that I was kind of looking at, we really didn't jump too much into your love life. Did you have a girlfriend? Do you have a girlfriend now? Are you dating? Are you married? Kids? Like what is that looking like?
I had a couple girlfriends growing up.
It's hoodie season. Just remember. Okay.
It's cuffing season. It's that time. It's getting cold. It's weak. But yeah, I did have girlfriends growing up. I mean, at the time, I was still learning to express myself, learning to be comfortable with being me. So in my mind, this wasn't going anywhere outside of like where we met. So like, I had a girlfriend at school. I wasn't really doing anything with you after school, or I had a girlfriend at church. Well, we hanged out, a time or two, but it wasn't nothing like physical or illicit. I mean, there was like a kiss here or there, but it wasn't nothing like groundbreaking or, like I said,
you didn't
just trying to express myself.
Pie?
Say again?
You didn't taste that poontang pie?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kids are watching. Let's plug our ears.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways,
why not?
Yeah, I don't know what Michael is on. Let's continue moving forward. Why not, JD? Why? Nothing else other than a few kisses here and there. Why did you decide? You know what? Let's keep it short and simple. No pun intended.
Well, like I mentioned, I was still in the phase of being able to express myself more readily. Already having a hard time in Detroit, being as different as I am, speaking differently, having different ideas, not necessarily being as conformative as I saw that my peers were, not necessarily being as goofy as I saw was cool and normal. I just wanted to be myself. So I was raised in a really religious household, as I mentioned in the previous episode. So there wasn't a lot of like sex before marriage that was pushed in my house. So that was a big part and factor with me, being essentially abstinent all throughout my time.
Religion kind of pushed you away from girls and like having sex and tasting that tang pie that I talked about?
Nah, I wouldn't say that. All right, so I guess this is time to really become transparent with the fact that I was never really, since I was young, attracted to women in that regarding capacity. So I would, of course, like I said, get the girlfriends to keep up appearances and to really please a lot of the other people that were in my life at the time. But it wasn't anything like naturally authentic or like passionate about it. It was more so trying to keep the status quo, if that makes sense.
So you weren't into, you said you weren't really into females, into girls, and I can understand that, maybe in elementary school, part of middle school, like you said, you're exploring your sexuality, but like, so then what were you into? Because for the viewers at home watching, you growing up, you were really, well educated. You were really well educated at home, at church. So what were you into? If you weren't into girls, you weren't into sports as much. Were you into cars?
I was into music. I play piano, guitar. I sing. I love that. Into books. I love reading all sorts. Keep me a really good book handy, if not reading an audio book handy. And really just trying to expand my mind and all that I could attain and goals that I wanted to set for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm being transparent, I also was exclusively really attracted to guys.
Wait, no,
yeah,
hold on, I'm confused.
right.
So you were more, so you're homosexual. Is that the right term to use? Homosexual, gay? What term is more fitting?
Well, same gender loving if you want, or attracted. However, what makes you feel comfortable articulating what you need to say.
So were you like that while dating these girls?
Unfortunately, yeah.
So why were you dating the girls? Was it just because that's what the norm is to people instead of being yourself? Did you hide this? Like, for what age did you find this out and hide this, and why?
I felt the peer pressure of being heteronormative. I'm pretty sure you guys might have heard that term before, where everybody or every example of relationship before you was obviously guy and girl. Coming from a religious background and family, being very well Christian, templates of Adam and Eve, and many harsh sermons of hearing not Adam and Steve. So it's like you want to please people, you want to fit in, you want to be the status quo. You don't want to already disenfranchise yourself as much as you already are being a black man, being in Detroit, where it's not necessarily the hardest, the easiest time growing up. And now on top of that, expressing myself in this degree would make it even harder. So like I said, I wanted to keep face, or like really just try and be as relatable as possible.
So here's the thing though, let's recap really quick, because we've talked throughout the season about you being a black man in America, and you being a black man who is very well educated, and unfortunately that doesn't conform to the regular status quo of a black man in America. So right then and there, you have two targets on your back, and now you are a homosexual black man in America, but you're also a man of faith, of which faith sort of, for the most part, you could say goes against these feelings, right? This attraction. What was going through your mind sort of the day you realized? When was it that you realized, you know what, I'm gay? And what was going through your mind that day? Do you remember that day?
So it wasn't like now I'm gay more so. It's like I've kind of always known since like early elementary school, that I wasn't attracted. I wasn't like the other guys. I mean, it went from a physical thing to like not necessarily having the same interest to where it became of a sexual nature where I wasn't necessarily attracted as my other counterparts were, to females. So I kind of knew that early on. And being from a religious background of faith, like I said, I wanted to perform and comport. And it really came to a place of like total, utter fear, to be transparent. I thought I was going to die and go to hell every other day. I thought that God didn't love me. I thought I was disenfranchised as a kid. I thought that I was less than human. So to people of color that here's specifically black people, they kind of understand what I mean when I say less than human. They've seen it if they've been in or predominantly around, white stores. I've seen it, or even Asian stores being followed around to make you feel like you're not as good, or that somehow you haven't earned a certain level of decency and respect. So, I mean, it's that same look, that same vitriol is kind of what I felt. So, being younger, it was total fear.
So let me ask you this, because you're in your story, this is you coming out to us, but I'm sure you came out to other people. So when was that first time that you came out? Who did you come out to, and why did you choose that person or persons?
So I would say I have two coming out stories or examples. One, the first time I was outed, and we'll talk about that. I entrusted two friends with that information about finally having that confidence and courage to articulate the fact that I was attracted to men. Before that time, I never did. I could never have the courage to say that, I was gay or anything of that nature. And before that time, it was just like, speak those things that be not as though they were. So it was me confessing a reality that I really wasn't living, unfortunately. So it got to the point where I was like, okay, these are the two people that I entrusted. These are my very good and best friends from the church that I've been at since I was a kid. These are developed relationships I developed over years and people that I thought, like I said, I could trust. So finally got the courage to tell them both, my brothers, my bros. One of them, who I am friends with to this day, was like, bro, I love you the same. Ain't nothing changing. I'm going to be here ride or die till you die or I die first. So we be here. The other one didn't take it well. He freaked out and was like, you need to talk to elder so-and-so. You need to get counseled by.
What does that mean, this. Talk to elder so-and-so?
An elder is a position of leadership in a church or organization. For example, if you're in a corporate setting, you have your executive office, your chief operating officer, your chief information officer, financial officer. In a church, you have different hierarchies or ranks concerning responsibility or those of administration. So you have like the pastor, the lead pastor, and then you might have associate pastors who help out. You might have elders who are over specific departments, and you have deacons who support those departments, and so on. So depending on the denomination, you have different configurations of something like that. But it's just generally speaking a position of administration or authority. So he's thinking that I should talk to one of the higher ranking Christians and that I should seek counsel. And so I said, well, okay, well, there's no problem there. I'm going to talk on a Sunday. You kind of remember stuff like this like it was yesterday. On a Thursday, I had this conversation. Said, okay, I'll talk to one of the elders on a Sunday. And then I get a phone call Saturday night letting me know that I wouldn't be able to participate in the church as much as I was. And at the time, like mentioned, I was like participating in choir. I was participating, either in vacation Bible school, helping out the younger kids or tutoring kids or anything that I could do to help. I was active. And I was told overnight that I was what's called silent, or I was told that I couldn't operate in any ministry effectively in the church.
For what
reason?
I
say again?
For what reason?
They wouldn't articulate it, but it was for them finding out that I was attracted to men.
And okay, so you're still a man of faith. Are you in church now?
I don't go. Okay, so we're in a pandemic right now. Let's not forget that. So, I don't go or frequent many places, period. So I don't.
I guess what I'm trying to. Okay, so I guess let me clarify, because I guess what I'm trying to ask is, so how does that sit with your church, the one you grew up in? How does that sit with your church now? Are you guys on good terms, or are you still like in exile, or?
So I no longer go to that church. So no, okay. I guess I should say, no, I didn't go to that church anymore. Actually, I had a pastor or a bishop who I love dearly, still served the man all those years. Even after being sat down in silence, is like, I felt like he was a father figure in my life. And in that regard, I wanted to, stay honorable, stay mannerable. Still, that's my pastor. So even after that, I still went to the church, still, gave tithes and was active in that regard, but nothing extra.
Just listening to your story, you're somebody who, is very religious and has had religion inside of their life, their entire life. How did that make you feel to have that stripped from you? That escape, that place of worship that you went, and the people that accepted you for who you are and then rejected you for who you are.
It was very traumatic. Like described, it was my outlet. It was everything I love to do. Like I said, I was musically inclined. and everything that I did, everything that I played was related to a church setting. So it was very, very heartbreaking, very disappointed. Fell into a really deep depression and dark place during that time. It went from, just the leadership finding out to an entire, what I felt like the entire church found out, a congregation of about 3,000 strong. All of a sudden you feel ostracized.
Did this guy feel like you were hitting on him? Like, what did he ever say his reason for spilling the beans?
No, there wasn't necessarily articulated. There was just an understanding to state that if you were, quote unquote, living in sin, then you wouldn't be able to operate in the ministry. And that's what really caused confusion with me in that regard, because it's like, I didn't lose my virginity until after high school. There was intentions, don't get me wrong. You want to do a lot more, but it wasn't as malicious as it was painted. I felt like a lot of people had biases and was using their own personal bigotry and trying to dress it up with the Bible and trying to push that on me as a kid. So that was a lot of the reason why I drew back. And during those silent years, I was still there, but like I said, not active.
I just have one last closing question under that. Did that make you judge the church on how they view people, or specifically this church?
So for a time it did. And for years after that, after my pastor of that church died, I didn't really go to church for years after. And I decided, well, I didn't want to be like the people or the examples that I saw. I wanted to be part of the solution. So fortunately for me, like I said, having so many family members who are of the faith, my cousin was starting his church. So I went and volunteered to be on the board and oversaw the growth and development of that. It was a laborious task, but I did that and was the worship leader at his church for 3 years. And after I felt like that church was established and was growing, I separated myself and made my transition on. So I don't necessarily have a church home right now, but I'm still of the faith.
I want to ask you if maybe you've come across somebody who is almost like in your shoes. Because again, you mentioned about helping open up this new church, and you go to church every now and then, no problem there. But if you've met anybody who is struggling with that, going to church, maintaining their faith, but also dealing with homosexuality or whatever preference they may be, have you ever met anybody like that?
So this is what pisses me off about the church, if I could be transparent, is that you could know, or you could see or have an indication that a person's gay. I'm kind of reminding of Dave Chappelle's comedy jokes that some of you can just tell, but legitimate, but no one wants to admit it. No one wants to talk about it. There has to be some sort of controversy or some sort of scandal before there is a real conversation about what's going on. So the church that I helped open, there were many that were homosexual and they were obvious, but none that would necessarily have conversations that I knew of. Maybe with the pastor for sure, potentially. But you could, see some relationships that were in the congregation. And there was my opportunity and my lead was to create an atmosphere that was not judged. Like, it was more so a come as you are. I don't care what your background or what your story is. You're more than welcome. So that was, I felt like, the whole kit and caboodle, soup to nuts, to be a part of the solution. Okay,
because that was going to be part of my next question, is sort of, from what I'm getting, so it seems like you don't feel like it's your responsibility to put an end to decades of oppression of homosexual people in the church, but at the same time, you want to create a safe environment for them where they should be safe. The house of God is welcoming to all people. Am I right? Or?
Well, it definitely should be welcoming to all people, but unfortunately, I've seen too many examples of it being just the opposite. Like I said, full of bias, bigotry, and people trying to qualify who deserves to be in the church and who does not. So I don't know if I would say it's my responsibility to tackle bigotry in the church, but the church is not a monolith. It's a cacophony or culmination of individuals. So if people that are in my circle of influence express anything like that, it's my responsibility to speak up then. But I'm not a superhero. I don't wear any capes. I'm just one man, so I can only do what I can.
Have you ever? I mean, you went to this church for a while, so have you ever seen them discriminate against somebody else for either the same thing or something else in that aspect? To alienate them, to reject them, to shoo them away. People that disappeared or heard their stories. Was that a common thing, or is it?
Yeah, there was someone else. So there was another individual, a young man in the church that, let's just say, caught my attention. Well, apparently I caught his first. I had no idea what was going on. Anyway, but we were first friends for the longest time, and then later I found out he was gay through another friend. I was just like, dang, bro, you didn't even tell me. But like, it went from having a friendship to developing into, feelings and things. That was actually the person who I eventually lost my virginity to, my first love. So he was the other person or individual that was also treated a certain type of way that was kind of shunned. And unfortunately, he ended up transitioning out too.
So I want to make a comparison here, B, because earlier we made mention, right, of all the targets, so to speak, that you have on your back, sort of, right, unintentional targets at that. It's not like you're going out there saying, hey, judge me. But what do you think is I don't even know if I should phrase it like that, but there's obviously some connection between the LGBTQ rights and the sort of civil rights, right, that Black people have been fighting for up until this day. You know what I'm saying? Because I used to advocate a lot for immigrant rights. And I've always said you can't be pro-immigrant rights and be against Black rights, or you can't be pro-Black rights and be against LGBTQ rights. What is your position on that? Because you sort of have both feet in both fields. You know what I'm saying? So what is your position on that?
Well, I always be very careful not to conflate the two. So if me as a Black man go out the door dressed as I do, carry myself how I am, there's no way that you could potentially tell if I'm gay or not unless I articulate that to you. Sure. But as soon as I step out that door, I am a Black man, period. I don't care where I am. I don't care what the situation or survey is. That's what's happening. So I agree that there obviously needs to be, some rectification with or reconciling with, people's situation and what they want to see out of their government. Really what it is the right to be, or the license to have what your partner leaves behind, or having those same rights where if they're on their deathbed, have those same visiting rights like any married couple would. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think that it's a fight against one another. Like I am, like you mentioned, the example of being both Black and gay. So, I mean, if we're fighting in the same directions, if we're fighting for liberty, if we're fighting for justice, if we're fighting for each other and not fighting each other, then I think that we both have some things that we could accomplish.
The world, I think, just has so much hate in it, and it's just sad. And I just wanted to comment on the point that you had said, Manny, because that is a really good point. Why is it that, and I don't want to say white people, because there are probably Black people that do this too, but I'm going to say white people for now. In this context, why do white people, a majority of white people that are of this mentality that want to fight for gun rights? You're not going to take my gun. Why is it okay to fight for the gun rights, but not right to fight for your sexuality rights, for the LGBTQ rights? You can't have one and just say fuck the other. It's a very upsetting thing. And there's no question out of that. That's just a statement. My question, though, is, all right, so you come out to the church, but I know that your parents were, pastors or deacons or hierarchies of the church. So did you tell them, how did they take it?
So, I mean, can we just go on a tiny rabbit trail with what you talked about, gun rights and the rights between, the rights of LGBTQ? Think of the psychology, always try and think of the disposition or mindset of a person that I don't agree with how they think. So I could, A, learn who my enemy is, and then two, maybe even learn something from the situation. Think about the mindset and the psychology behind a status of fear that you're holding on to guns. What are you afraid of? But there's something something that's in front of them constantly. Those Fox News, those News Ones, those outlets that perpetuate lies and really just distort truth. So I mean, it's hopefully some folk are waking up, but it's really just sad. It's sad, but I mean, like I said, there's progress to be made. The question about how did my parents take it? Well, they didn't take it very well. I'm pretty sure you guys can relate once a mom figures out, especially a black mom figures out something that she didn't know, or is told something about her kid that she didn't know. She's pretty pissed. So once I was outed, it got back to my parents about what was going on. And so that was a very tough conversation to have. So they were asking me questions that honestly I didn't have answers to about my, attraction. Of course, many parents ask me, was it a phase? Is this something that's going to go away? Is this something that you can grow out of? Maybe if we don't, do this or put you in that, this will help. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of answers at that point. So there was a very restrictive, operating after that. I wasn't able to spend that over anyone else's house. I wasn't able to do anything, like right under my parents is right where I was. And I think it was their way of trying to keep me safe. Of course, I'm pretty sure there was a level of embarrassment for them, because how can they find out as two heterosexual parents who are associate pastors at this church that their son is now gay? So it was a lot of, tough maneuvering for them on their part, but I feel like I made it. I mean, that's my story. I'm proud of it.
So I wanna backtrack a little bit, and I don't want to get too carried away with this, because I know you definitely, and I know Michael definitely has a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, of course, this has significant value to all of us, right? So here's a quick sort of comparison that I've been thinking about since we mentioned this little thing about being black and being gay and the gun laws that Michael mentioned, right? So I think what you said fits perfectly well. It's like you don't just look at somebody. In your case, you don't just look at JD and say, "Oh, JD is gay," until you let somebody know, "Hey, you know what? I am gay. I'm homosexual, openly homosexual." The same thing can be said for carrying guns and the laws behind the guns, right? You don't necessarily see somebody carrying a concealed weapon until they disclose that to you, right? Now, let's keep in mind that if a black man does have a concealed weapon, right, 11 out of 10 times he's going to be shot to death by police, by a million people. I mean, there's a George Zimmerman case where Trayvon wasn't even carrying a weapon and he was shot to death. So my thing is, what do you think? Because you are not the only gay black man in America, JD. I hate to break it to you. You are not. But what do you think black men who are gay, who are homosexual, or whatever they may identify as, what do you think you guys need to do for the community, sort of that is in your power? I mean, I mentioned my involvement with immigrant rights, but this is a lot different. You said, when I walk out the door, I'm black, right? So what do you guys need to do? What do you guys think you could do? What do you, Jay Davis, think you could do for the black gay community in America or wherever you may be?
I think what I can do is doing exactly what I'm doing right now, having a positive impact by having great conversations, networking and meeting great people like yourself, sharing my story. I have just kind of through my career have put many black people in positions of banking, and they have gone on to live very lucrative lives, transforming their family, and making money that they just honestly never conceived was possible. So I feel like in that way I was able to give back. I volunteered quite regularly and have always since I was young, from Habitat to Humanity to just a few more that I can name in the city of Detroit that consistently gave back to the less fortunate and the homeless, and really just being the best me that I could be. So it's like it's certain things I can't necessarily teach you. You can only learn by me living it around you. So if you can see how fulfilled my life is, if you could see the love being displayed, if you could see that I'm not that much different from you, then I'm pretty sure that you could learn to treat me with the same respect that you would treat your brother or your sister, because I am in fact someone else. So I feel like if people could just be open for dialogue and conversation, um, that will definitely help push a lot of conversations forward, a lot of agendas forward. And I can do that by, like I said, having the conversations with you guys and sharing it with the family.
You know,
Well, you're
sorry to cut you off. I just, you know, the thing that was in my mind is something you said, Manny, and I just wanted to touch base on it before you lose that thought, or I lose that thought, is about judgment. And judgment in general is just something that the church is the last people on the planet that you would think would judge somebody, that they would preach that. And you had said, you know, he's black first. You know, when he wakes up, he's black first, and whatnot. And I say, that's great, but you are so many more. We as individuals are so much more than our race first, or our sexuality first, or our religion first. And we as people, that's the problem, is that we judge those things first. And so I guess my question is a more generalized question as you, because I don't see you as being black first or gay first or religious first to a certain religion. I see what I've known you to be and my characteristics, but my question is to you is what you want people, what do you want people to see before those things?
So that's a good question, Michael. I don't necessarily see these attributes as bad things. They are demarcations of difference, but I mean, I don't think it's inherently bad. So
I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm just saying that you are more than those things first. You are those things and those are important, but I think that people need to see other qualities first.
Well, unfortunately, speaking to my reality, the first quality that you're going to see before I open my mouth when I walk in the door is going to be this. And every single presupposition that you have, every single thing that you've seen on TV, every generalization, every stereotype is going to come to the very forefront of your mind. That is the first thing that I have to confront with engaging. So that's why I said I am a black man first, because that's my reality here in the United States.
And
if I were to
that,
go...
But understand the question. The question is, what do you want people to see first?
I don't want to change nobody. Here, look, these are my glasses. I don't want to put these on anybody else. I want the reality to be there. Yes, I am a black man. Yes, I am a gay man. Yes, I am an educated man. Yes, I'm a banker. These are all things that inform my life's experience that I want to share with these people. And if they could find themselves in Jay Davis, the person that was volunteering at these nonprofits, or if they could find themselves in Jay Davis, the black boy from Detroit, or if they can relate and find themselves, even people from high positions as Jay Davis, the banker. However you can find yourself, even Jay Davis, the educated person, find yourselves, and I'm sharing this with you to take up. I want you to have all of it. You're gonna get all this love. So that's what I want them to see. But maybe pointedly to your question, the first thing I want people to see is love.
I like it. This is my last question on my end, and I'll give the floor to Bowie after this. You made mention many times throughout this season about your life and your involvement in corporate America. Not too much. And when I ask you this, don't give us too much, because hopefully we will touch on that next season or next episode. I apologize, next episode. So stay tuned for that. But my question to you, JD, is do you think you are now a man in corporate America, a black man in corporate America? Like you said, when you walk into the business meetings, that's the first thing they see, right? They don't see you as a gay black man. They don't see you as a Christian black man. They just see you as a black man who's educated once he starts talking. But do you think for Black America, it would be the key, sort of the key to end these battles for the civil rights that I tried to sort of compare to the LGBTQ rights, which you have now taught me that they are not exactly the same, although they can be, right, supportive of one another. They are not the same thing. But do you think that wealth, do you think that financial status, financial wealth is the key to helping Black America sort of, you know, end all these battles for the civil rights that we are fighting today?
It's our key and honestly our only hope. If we don't get this financial literacy thing under wraps, there's no way that you can build communities. There's no way that you could build institutions. There's no way that you could change a narrative. If you don't control institutions, you can't control narratives. And you can't, if you don't control your community, there's no way that you can build an institution. So I would, just to put this in a perspective, I would say Detroit's public school system isn't the best. And that's lightly stating. So, but what we also don't look at is the fact that there aren't many Detroit Black homeowners. Why is that important? Because the property taxes from the homeowners is what's going to the schools. So if you have all of these vacancies, or if you have all these abandoned homes, the revenue that the city needs in order to, you know, build these institutions isn't available. So if we can get, like I said, financial stability in buying homes and, you know, diversifying accounts, you know, purchasing certificates of deposit, stocks and bonds, whatever you need to do, learn about it, become very interested in how your future is going to be for you and your children, and start putting yourselves in a position, and I promise you, you're going to see a change.
Well, I'm going to end on this note because I feel like a lot has been taken in, a lot has been discussed, and what bothers me is that so many people live their lives maybe inside of some rich neighborhood, Beverly Hills, Bloomfield Hills, you know, the rich kind of areas, as rich or more fortunate Americans or people. And so they're not privy to know the obstacles that we may face. They may think it's not as bad, or we're blowing it out of proportion. You already deal with enough being a Black man. Now, on top of that, somebody who is dealing with stuff with the judgment from the church and religion and also sexuality coming out. I mean, that's more than just one thing. That's 3-4 things that you're just juggling as like attacks, judgment, and from all different kinds of aspects. Parents, the people that you trust to have confided in to tell this to, the church, etc., etc. And it's a big thing. I mean, back in the day, homosexuality was something that was highly frowned upon, and it's changed a little bit, and now it's kind of going back to being frowned upon. But looking at people that have to deal with this, that have not come out, what is your advice or thoughts to them who are struggling with that, trying to find themselves and come out and be themselves? What would you say to them? What's your advice?
I want to let them know that it takes extreme courage and bravery to express yourself like that. It takes a tenacity to want to continue to live in the face of adversity in some areas, coming in face of those things like that. And to be honest, in some places, it could very well be life or death. I won't be ignorant of the fact that in many countries around the world, if you are homosexual, the penalty is death or life in prison. So, I mean, we can't take this lightly. There needs to be, not only in the United States, but around the world, civility. Treat each other well and with respect, like it was your kid, or if it was you. So, I mean, that's part of it. That's part of the conversation that we're having. But get me back on point, boy. I started preaching. What was the real question that we were getting at?
What's the advice that you would give to somebody that has gone through that same kind of struggle of trying to come out to be their true selves?
Keep fighting. Keep fighting. You're going to face adversity. You're going to face opposition. People telling you that you are less than. People telling you that you're not worth it. They're going to demonize you. You're going to make you feel smaller than what you are. But the truth of the matter is, you're more powerful than what you know.
And there
the
it
truth of
is.
the matter is, you are full of innovation and creativity that's yet to be expressed. It's
There
up
it
to
is.
you to express.
I agree that their love, like you said earlier, that's number one that we want to see from all people. There's so much hate, and it's not necessary. I mean, we are all different, and we all have our struggles, and some of us have more struggles than the other ones, and some people need to be a little bit more empathetic, sympathetic to that, kind towards the differences. If you want me to be kind because you have a mole on your face, or acne, or that you're overweight or whatever, then be okay with the judgment of who I am as a person. I mean, I don't hold it against Manny for being under 3 feet tall. I don't hold it against Manny for being currently sitting inside of a high chair in order to be able to be seen on his camera. But these are the things that we just have to keep in mind, to not judge people just because they're not as tall as us, or whatever the case may be. So I want to thank you for sharing your story, and telling us where you came from and what you're about and what you want other people to see inside of you. Unfortunately, we're coming to that closing. One more episode, and we will get that Friday, 10 o'clock, live here on Bowie Films. For everybody that's watching, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell. Send up some smoke signals. Tie a little note to a pigeon's leg. Send it on its way, and let us know. And you can see it on the shirt. No justice, no peace. I am Michael Bowie, with my co-host, Manny Lagunes. This is Jay Davis. And we will see you guys this week.